word about KJJA Awards. Krystyna and Jim sadly passed away this year. Are great sustainable advocates and great educators. And those of you who know or didn't know them or will have heard and seen the good work, not only in the ecological sense, but also social and holistic dimension of design. And that is what they promoted in their teaching and founded this award. This year, this award is to second year students at universities, and all the Scottish schools are invited to attend, submit. And essentially, they're all winners because they're all winners of their own school, of their second year cohort. So first, I'd like to invite Amelia from the Glasgow School of Art to talk. And this is a quick 5-minute each presentation, so like a bit chat with people.
So I'm Amelia Mackintosh, and I'd just quickly like to thank SEDA for giving me the opportunity to present a little bit more about my work. So my project Interplay aims to address upskilling in Caerlaverock Castle and in Scotland's construction workforce. So using Caerlaverock Castle as a basis, I've retrofitted it in order to create an educational construction hub, which also increases public interest within the building. In Scotland, skilled tradespeople and experienced contractors don't have a way with which to pass on their information to the younger generation, and this is resulting in an aging workforce and a lack of shortage of skilled workers. So a little bit of history about Caerlaverock. It was built in the 13th century. If any of you have been, it's like quite distinct in its plan. It's triangular. So through analysing the castle, I aimed to focus a lot of the design in the northern section, as that's where existing walls remain. And by pushing this relationship between the closed spaces of the castle and the open wide spaces that you'll notice if you ever explore Caerlaverock. I also really wanted to retain the features of the castle, specifically these small details that you can see throughout. And these details are quite hard to reach in certain places, as lots of walls and floors and stairs to pull them down. So using the design as a way to explore the castle was very important to me. Okay, so the castle is organised using self-contained inserts, and these would hold the programme, meaning the castle is the primary form of transportation around the construction hub. This would encourage meetings between the public and private throughout the castle, so the people can learn about what the students are learning about, and also the public visitors are able to explore the hub and also explore the castle for themselves, standing on top of it in between and going throughout the place. The north of the castle has the majority of the walls, so the windows face south, and this meant in the higher up sections I used timber fins that prevented glare and overheating in the rooms, and then lower down where I was using existing windows as the way to get sunlight into the rooms. And these existing walls would act as overhangs to prevent overheating and glare as well. Additionally, to prevent stone details being hidden by the new inserts, little peak windows were inserted so that you could look from inside of a plug onto some of the stone details. So the construction is based around using the pre-existing beam holes that would have been used in the 15th century, and using oak beams, which is what they used in the 15th century as well. This meant the materials were sourced locally and following lead and breeding-like procedures. So I used hemp insulation that could be sourced from Edinburgh, and this is important as firstly it sequesters carbon, but also it brings back that teaching to the construction school. The quality of health and safety for construction workers is incredibly important and shouldn't be ignored just for a letter D value. Yeah, that's that. So then the organisation of the castle focuses on the dirty works down here. So this is where the majority of construction works is based. And this is where there's a triangular courtyard, where the public would also be able to take part in workshops. Additionally, there's the upstairs levels provide seminar spaces, and this is where the people at the school can learn about materials networks, hydraulical construction, energy modeling, and sustainable energy criteria. Designing for social interaction within the building was very important, as this could increase public knowledge of passive heating, cooling, thermal bridging, and recyclability of material. The operational carbon of the workshops could also be reduced by using traditional vernacular techniques within the buildings and within the educational system. As the castle ages, the timber cladding will turn grey, the large will grey over time, and this will make it blend into the castle walls and then match the stone over time. Using a combination of passive stack and cross ventilation, good indoor air quality and thermal comfort can be achieved. The Caerlaverock Castle Construction Hub is carefully considered focal point for learning and sharing knowledge between construction professionals, academic bodies, and members of the public. Interpolate did not aim to return Caerlaverock to its historical self, but to use it as a site of the inciting incident for further construction and construction knowledge. Thank you for this. Thank you. This year, and I just quickly like to thank Kathy for her help over the summer.
The E has fallen off. Sorry. All the shuffling of slides doesn't fall off. Then, University of Dundee. Just press that and pause. Okay. Like that. See it again. And then you have to hold it really close to your mouth. Okay. The brief asks for a proposal for a contemporary wood school located within Camperdown Country Park. The proposed wood school should prioritise tectonic timber construction and contain a public-facing cafe and exhibition space, alongside the workshop and educational spaces. Camperdown Country Park is a large public green space to the northwest of Dundee, connected to the city by public transport and a cycle route. The area of the park where the proposal is situated is currently a disused golf course and is shown in a dashed red boundary on the location plan. Popular with dog walkers and has a maximum 8-metre level change over its area. It sits prominently below Camperdown House and a dense forested area on the site's urban boundary, along with an access track onto the west. The exposed nature of the site admits a strong prevailing wind from the southwest. The proposal aims to complement the site's constraints and is anchored between two sets of trees on north-south axis in an area with a natural 4.5-metre level change, which influences floor-to-ceiling height of the design. The design is split into two primary forms, and where the upper slides back placing a step and presents an opportunity to develop an interesting roofscape. The two elements are tied together by a stereotomic core, which forms a connection with Camperdown House to the northeast of the site. The proposal leads the visitor through the spaces using an expressed repetitive frame structure, accentuating the linear aspects of the design. The undulating roof form corresponds to the existing contours of the site and is topped with a native wildflower blanket, tying the building into the landscape. Entering on the first floor, visitors are drawn through the space to the cafe and out onto the roofscape beyond, where skylights give glimpses into workshop spaces below. Both the rammed earth core and the Heller upstairs connect the two floors, where the stair functions as casual lecture and event space. A glass wall encapsulates the workshop on the ground floor and allows visitors to see in, giving them an opportunity to learn about timber craft. The services are concealed in the overshadowed and buried areas of the site, with an existing access track at the bottom of the site. The express glue lamp structure is complemented by timber screens, which suggest the division of space and celebrate the building's use as a carpentry school.
The tectonic timber structure and finishes contrast with stereotonic round earth core, which ties the two lightweight forms together. The heller upstairs follows the drop in the landscape and leads the visitor into the educational heart of the building, blurring the boundary between public and private spaces. Furthermore, it is constructed from the plywood formwork used to create the round earth core, intertwining all of the building's elements. Given the sloping nature of the sites and the spatial requirements of the proposal, a large quantity of concrete would have been needed to construct a typical foundation and retaining wall system. Therefore, I explored the alternative option of an internally insulated foundation and retaining wall system based on the principles of random rubble trench foundation, where locally sourced stone and demolition waste is compacted into the trenches to transport building loads into the ground. This innovative approach, in conjunction with a careful consideration of sustainable building materials, resulted in a low embodied carbon. The typical Scottish larch-clad external wall is constructed using a large in-truss frame built with 300mm wood fibre insulation, resulting in a U value of 0.1, which is in line with some kind of standard. The proposal primarily uses a natural ventilation strategy, in which the strong prevailing wind from the southwest creates positive pressure on the glazed side of the building, and assisting cross ventilation of the stale air being expelled through smaller controlled openings on the north side. The ventilation strategy is complemented by an extractor and MVHR unit in high-intensity areas where a greater number of air changes are required, such as the kitchen and the workshop. The building's high thermal mass, achieved through the round earth core and green roof on the ground floor, helps to regulate the internal temperature, reducing the demand on the ground source heat pump. To minimise the proposal's reliance on the grid, the upper roof holds 33 PVs, where on a typical day they generate sufficient quantity of energy to cover the building's heating, ventilation and lighting. In summary, the proposal will offer a space embedded within the landscape of Camperdown Country Park that caters to both students and wider community.
Next up, we have Erin.
Sorry.
That's right. Just press this to go forward.
Okay.
Okay. And just hold this quite close to her.
Can everyone hear me? Good. Okay, so my project was called A Place to Choose, and I wanted to make up like a little motto, and I came up with a gentle space for every pace. So at the beginning of the project, we were given 3 sites in St Andrews, so that led us to like a really thorough timescape analysis of the place. One of the things that really stuck out to me though was the fact that in St Andrews you kind of transported into like little nooks everywhere. I feel like you can just walk into anywhere and there's like a small little secret garden space. So that was something that really inspired me at the start of the project. It reminded me of my little sister who has learning disabilities, and I wanted to create a library space that everybody could use, because I actually think libraries are quite a daunting space to go into. I think they're beautiful, but they are quite scary and they can be quiet and cold, and that's just not what I wanted to create. So I decided to choose the most urban site because I felt like a building like this should sit very proudly in the context. And this led me wanting to experiment with how I wanted it to look. I knew that I wanted to focus on 4 kind of separate rooms that were a controlled area. At the start of the project though, I didn't know if I wanted to put everything in the brief under these 4 like areas or if I wanted to separate them. And I decided after a lot of research into shape and what materials would benefit this, I wanted to just separate them from the other part of the library so that I could create, controlled spaces. So for me, my plans were the most important part of this building. I really wanted to create the feeling that you're maybe not in your comfort zone and you're stepping into it and you're transported. So as you can see in the ground floor plan, which is in the top corner, I have this like corridor, and you have to walk past the reception, you have to walk past the reading room to get to these spaces. And to get into these spaces, there's a control lobby just to further prove that like element of the building. And the building is totally made out of timber. There is mass timber construction with glue beams. So I felt like this would really trigger your sense of smell as well, because buildings that are totally made of timber generate calmness, and I felt like that would be really good for people who maybe didn't feel too calm in a normal library. So for my construction section, I wanted to show kind of how natural light would impact the building and show what that would generate, because I wanted to create these little nooks in the reading room so you could go into these and feel like incredibly like comfortable, and like you were almost in like a little private space of the library. Even though the library was for public use, you felt like this was your area, and you felt totally comfortable. So I used like an atrium lighting technique, so that would bring in like loads of natural light and really just like, if you go into these units, you can look up at the sky, and that's really important to me, because I feel like even though we live in quite a cloudy country, I feel like natural light is something that a lot of spaces really don't take advantage of. And then for these 3D spaces, I actually did them with tea, because I feel like tea is quite a calming material. And like the smell of doing it and the process of doing it made me just further connect with what I was designing, and that was really important to me. And then for my wall build-up, I just wanted to show like all of the levels of timber and insulation and everything that I had done with it. My building supports the RIBA's Good Health and Wellbeing category by prioritising wellbeing and low energy use. Thank you. The wall build-up uses wood fibre installations to maintain stable indoor temperatures, reduce overheating, and manage moisture. Careful detailing minimises cold spots, with open windows in a garden setting and MPHR for fresh air. Heating provided by efficient underfloor systems, which give warmth, improve comfort, and work well with renewable energy, helping cut carbon while creating a healthy, resilient environment.
Josh. So this is looking forwards to the slide and hold it close to your mouth.
Okay, thank you. I'm Josh, and so the brief for our project, we were given a site in Venice in an all-gondola workshop. It was in decline, and we were challenged with putting in some sort of residential strategy. So the area around it is very interesting and rich already. Across the river sat at the intersection of two canals, and then on the other side of it was a big campo square, and it had a historic wall. And then over all of this was this sort of overshadowing presence of the church, which is the Church of Santa Clausa. And so from this, my response came was the monastery of Santa Clausa, which is the community monastery. And the community monastery focuses around four key themes of social sustainability, material reuse, pastime, thermal comfort, and water diversity. So I'll get into all of the above. So social sustainability. The first thing I thought of doing was the existing site was very much like a termination point for the whole area. So it stopped things that should have connected or could have connected from connecting. So I basically made the ground level transparent and opened it up to everything around it. And this became a community level, a public level for a monastery. And then above the monastery, 50 residencies for the monks from the church. And because of the nature of being among these people, they could devote their lives to promoting and curating and cultivating the community that's that they needed. So altogether, there's this like network of links that created. So inside of the site itself, in the top right of that plan, there's an herb garden, and that feeds into a community kitchen, and then that feeds into the whole sort of congregation space, church, and then there's a market which feeds off local businesses, and there's a possibility to expand out onto the square, depending on the weather. The gondola workshop, because it's still such an interesting thing to have, is retained but localized to a more like demand appropriate scale, and new tidal steps are installed to save space. And then another thing I did was on the left hand side there's a sort of tidal seating intervention which looks in towards the courtyard, and it's just a stopping place on a very liminal street to sit and watch the inner workings of the monastery and the community that sits beneath it. And yeah, that's interesting. The material we use, there was such a rich existing fabric to the site already, and all the gondola offices sat around to the masonry, the sort of patchwork of history that all came together, and it was like the perfect, tool to build from. So I think 61% of the existing masonry fabric is left exactly as it is, and the rest of it is all reused elsewhere in the project. And then in the internal strategy, there's to bring it in line with the residential sort of appropriate thermal setting. There's just the inside insulation wood fiber adhered to the existing wall. That's it, and that brings it to the house values of 0.15, and then the roof is lower at 0.13, and that's all I needed to get it there. House design. So the form of all the monk cells, the residencies, and then all the public levels beneath it. They're dealing with quite, obviously the summer is very warm in Venice. Well, yeah, a lot of stuff about so again, the natural orientation around this courtyard facing the south, and then the eaves extending a particular amount to block out the peak summer sun and allow lower winter sun. Same for the ground level, the balconies do the same thing. Everything, all windows openable, changeable. You can adapt whatever you want to suit you, whatever you need. And then, yeah, thermal mass wherever possible, reusing materials like brick on the floors. And water biodiversity, because the nature of Venice as a city scale, being very concerned with water, and then the site where it's sat near Mull Well, and then the canals. I was using the existing well and sort of extending the system to add a water pump into the herb garden to feed that and to add sustenance to the site. And then the large surface area of the roof for rainwater catching and then harvesting of that as well. And things like water parapets, promoting greenery wherever possible. And everything that comes along with greenery for carbon sequestering and naturally improving or reducing urban heat island effects. And yeah, I can ask you more about it if you want, but yeah, so cheers.
Correct. The winners already, as I said before, they're winners of their year in their own schools. But now I'll invite Colin and Lynn and Anna to announce the winners, give judges comments and the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Close to your house.
Yeah. Yeah. First time I've actually been invited to be chair of the judges of this particular competition, and it was seriously hard work, but seriously rewarding hard work. I believe that just pay tribute to the other judges in the team: Sandy Halliday, Richard Atkins, Sam Foster, and Fionn Stevenson. Not to talk for long. We had two greenfield sites, as it were, one bigger field than the other, and we had two that come under the sort of heading of adaptive reuse. And to cut a long story short, the judges eventually couldn't make up their minds between the two adaptive reuse projects, and so they are in fact joint first winners. So congratulations. to Josh, who's just spoken. We know.
I would be happy to hand out the certificates to Josh. Here we are.
Cool. Thank you so much, all of you, and thank you for the hard work that the judges has done as well to do the very difficult choice bit. So yeah, now, is there anything else you want to say, Lynn?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind saying
A few words about the, yeah.
I just wanted to reiterate what all the people have said, that what a wonderful award this is, and how thanks to the legacy of our parents, who Glo mentioned often in her introduction, they would be absolutely delighted to know how inspiring their influence from afar has come, and bringing forward these awards and helping architects to think in a much more sustainable way, and not that they don't already, but to build on that in new ways. So this year, probably most of you are aware that our dad died in January, at the good old age of 92. So very quickly, a new judging panel had to be formed, and Colin here was the chair of all the esteemed members who came up with the winners and shortlisted entries. So congratulations to everybody involved in organising this, including Nick, who is sometimes behind the scenes but is nevertheless involved.